Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're looking at something pretty incredible. India's journey of taking a highly restricted colonial higher education system and literally transforming it into a global powerhouse. If you've ever wondered how a massive nation builds its intellectual infrastructure completely from scratch, well, this is that story. To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of this system today, just take a look at this number, 43 million. That's the current student enrollment right now. It makes India's higher education system the third largest on the entire planet. But how on earth did they actually get here? Well, here's our roadmap for the explainer today. We're going to break this decades-long quest into 5 pivotal eras: laying the foundations, expansion and equity, liberalization and the private sector, the NEP 2020 vision, and finally, legacy and future challenges. Okay, let's contrast where India started back in 1947 with what they actually wanted to achieve. The colonial legacy, it was basically a system meant to churn out clerical staff, nothing more. But the post-independence vision, that demanded a total paradigm shift. They desperately needed to build a dynamic engine focused on real nation building, innovation, and serious research. So let's dive into part 1, laying the foundations. Right out of the gate after independence in 1947, the University Education Commission stepped in and brilliantly laid the groundwork with this 10 plus 2 plus 3 model. And this wasn't just about shuffling grades around, they were heavily stressing the vital need to embed a deep research culture right from day one. Over that first critical decade, the early 5-year plans very deliberately prioritized technical education. This push led straight to the creation of the very first IIT, IIT Kharagpur, back in 1951. And then, just a few years later, in '56, they established the University Grants Commission to carefully regulate funding, quality, and this rapid expansion. The whole driving philosophy here was exactly this: nation building through technical and agricultural education. You've got to remember, these weren't just bureaucratic updates. This was literally a blueprint for economic survival. India needed institutions that could secure agricultural self-reliance while kickstarting industrial growth at the exact same time. All right, moving on to our second era, part 2, expansion and equity. Entering the 60s and stretching into the 80s, the Kothari Commission came in and essentially reframed the entire system. They firmly positioned education as the ultimate tool for national development and modernization. But crucially, they focused on educational equity, meaning actually bringing education to corners of the country that had previously been left completely in the dark. To see that vision actually translate into reality, just look at this growth. Back in 1947, India had a mere 20 universities total. By the 1980s, that number surged to over 100. It was this massive snowball effect of access, driven by new regional universities and research centers popping up all over the map. But it wasn't just about quantity, right? It was about prestige, too. This exact same era birthed the elite IIMs for management and IMAS for medical research. They needed to make absolutely sure that world-class expertise was keeping pace with a rapidly developing nation. And that perfectly sets the stage for our third major shift, part 3, liberalization and the private sector. Right before the private sector boom truly exploded, the AICTE Act of 1987 was put into place. Its main job was to standardize technical education across the whole country, basically acting as a much-needed quality control dam before the floodgates officially opened. And then the floodgates opened. 1991 brought the watershed moment of economic liberalization. This massive policy shift sparked a huge surge in private universities. They rapidly expanded professional courses to feed the booming global IT and business sectors, which ultimately transformed India's technical workforce into a massive global export. Which brings us right into the modern day, part 4, the NEP 2020 vision. Thanks to decades of all that public and private expansion we just talked about, India's higher education footprint has absolutely exploded. Today, there are over 45,000 higher education institutions across the country. That's the sprawling 43 million student system we mentioned at the very beginning. So, to actually manage and modernize this colossal network, the National Education Policy, or NEP 2020, was introduced. The goal here is to push the system toward true global competitiveness. We're talking multidisciplinary curricula, super flexible credit systems, and cutting edge digital learning hubs designed to align Indian institutions with the absolute highest global standards. And the results of this relentless, decades-long focus on research, they are undeniable. Today, India proudly ranks among the top countries globally when it comes to producing scientific publications. It's a staggering, exponential leap from those early days of independence. Now, let's take a step back for our final section, Part 5, Legacy and Future Challenges. When you look back at it all laid out like this, the evolution is incredibly clear. We go from early technical nation building in the 50s and 60s to the massive push for equity into the 80s, the privatization wave of the 90s, all the way up to today's NEP 2020 focus on global competitiveness and digital learning. But amidst this incredible triumph of scale, we really have to snap our attention back to ground level for a second and ask a critical question. With 45,000 institutions, what challenges actually remain? Well, despite those massive numbers, the system is still facing some very real, lingering hurdles on the ground. The three biggest ones are maintaining consistent educational quality across such a vast network, ensuring truly equitable access for all demographics, and simply building adequate physical infrastructure. Yet, even with those hurdles, the legacy of this journey is absolutely secure. As this quote highlights, the system has truly become a cornerstone of India's economic and social transformation. It successfully turned a restricted colonial apparatus into the very engine driving India's rise on the world stage. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I'll leave you with this thought to chew on. As India solidifies its place as a top-tier global research giant, how exactly will it bridge those final, on-the-ground equity and infrastructure gaps? Basically, can a massive system of 45,000 institutions finally guarantee that its world-class potential serves every single citizen?